Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part 2. I had to take a little bit of time before I could come back to do this one. But we're back. And this is the second part of the 26th video in the Caesar series. And Perusine War? I don't even remember how to say it now. Let's just get to the video. There's a war about to start.
Lucius was compelled to make camp around the city of Perusia sometime in late 41 BC, or else be picked apart by Octavian's forces. He was quickly besieged by the armies of Octavian, Agrippa, and Silvidianus. With Lucius besieged, Fulvia sent messages to Asinius and Ventidius to march to his aid, but both men seem to have been reluctant to commit. Some sources attribute this to rank insubordination or laziness. However, it is important to remember that these men were loyal to Mark Antony, not his brother or wife. They took orders from Antony, and Antony had thus far sent no commands. Furthermore, Lucius's cause was not particularly popular with much of the soldiery, and they might have thought it prudent to avoid the possibility of their men defecting to Octavian. Whatever the true reason, the two held back, and when Octavian sent detachments of his army to confront them, they both withdrew. Asinius to Ravenna and Ventidius to Ariminum. Another force, commanded by Plancus, was also en route, but hearing that Asinius and Ventidius had not committed, he too held his forces back in Spoletium. Lucius pulled his men, likely 4 legions, roughly 25,000 men, inside the walls of Perusia. The city was well defended, with strong walls and situated on a high hill. Lucius's men fortified the base of the hill, providing a second line of defences, while Octavian's forces, constituting as many as 9 legions, approximately 40,000 men, constructed 2 lines of fortifications with ditches, one facing inwards and one outwards, just as Julius Caesar had done at Alesia. The rampant famine had left little food in Italy, and Lucius's men were already running low. They launched a daring night attack during a festival, hoping to cut a way out, but Octavian's men were waiting, and they were beaten back after brutal fighting. The siege, it seemed, would be decided by Antony's generals. After approximately 2 months, Ventidius and Asinius at last broke camp, marching to Lucius's position. Agrippa moved quickly though, taking his force to cut the two off, and forcing them to encamp in the city of Fulginium, where they united with the force of Plancus. They were less than 20 miles from Lucius, and lit large signal fires to alert him of their location, massively raising the morale of Lucius's besieged men. Asinius and Ventidius were, apparently, eager to press on and overrun Agrippa. However, Plancus pointed out that if they tried this, Octavian's men could quickly march to their position and pin them between 2 armies. A decision had to be made. In Perusia, Lucius's men watched the fires anxiously, waiting for reinforcements. When none came, they assumed that they were simply delayed. They continued to wait until one night there were no more fires. Ventidius, Asinius, and Plancus had made their decision. Lucius would fight alone. Growing more desperate, Lucius ordered another night attack, attacking almost the entire length of Octavian's defences. The battle continued throughout the night, but ultimately Octavian's men were able to hold the line and force Lucius to retreat. The food shortage in the city was becoming dire. Lucius ordered that no slave be given any food, and most were forced outside between the walls of Lucius and Octavian, where they tried to eat grass to survive. Many of them died here. Lucius's men, in desperation, begged to try a final sally. They gathered all the ladders, siege hooks, and what Appian calls folding towers. Rather than attack across the length of the line, this time they focused their attacks on a few specific locations, hoping to disperse Octavian's forces as much as possible, while still keeping theirs concentrated enough to make a breach. Lucius's men fought bravely, scaling the walls, and initially seeming to hold the upper hand. Octavian, however, had held his best troops in reserve. Once the men fighting on the walls on both sides were exhausted, Octavian committed his fresh reserves, throwing Lucius's men from the walls and destroying the planks that led from the siege towers to the walls. Lucius's forces were trapped on the ground and under near constant missile fire. He ordered a retreat, but some of his men, driven by desperation and bravery, tried again to scale the wall with ladders, only to be repulsed. Again, Lucius called the retreat, leading his force back inside the walls. The siege, which had lasted for no more than 6 months, was effectively lost. Lucius's men had suffered many losses. Still more were beginning to desert, and it was clear that reinforcements would not be coming. Lucius could do little more than try and preserve the lives of his men. A delegation of peace was sent to Octavian, who replied that he would be lenient to all except his enemies. Lucius and his men surrendered. Octavian spared the soldiers, welcoming many of Antony's old veterans into his ranks. The nobles on Lucius's side were not so lucky, with perhaps as many as 300 equites and a number of senators being executed. The city of Perusia itself was burned, the sources disagreeing on whether this was on Octavian's orders or by accident. Lucius, however, was forgiven, and Octavian soon made him a governor in Iberia, attempting to pit him against his brother. Lucius's motivation has long been a source of speculation. Some consider him to have been an opportunist who capitalized on the frustration of the agrarian population only because it was politically convenient to do so. Others have a more sympathetic view.
I think he just wanted to help his brother, and he saw that there was a chance that maybe he can get this guy out of here, elevate himself possibly. Maybe not.
Suggesting that Lucius truly did believe that Octavian was abusing his position as triumvir, and that he fought for the rights of the Italian people. Appian certainly is of this opinion, as can be seen from a speech reportedly given by Lucius and recorded by Appian. "I undertook this war against you, not in order to succeed to the leadership by destroying you, but to restore to the country the patrician government which had been subverted by the triumvirate. These are the causes of the war I waged, and these alone. Not for my brother, nor Manius, nor Fulvia, nor the colonization of those who fought at Philippi. You brought this charge against me before the soldiers, shifting the cause of war from yourself to the land distribution, and in this way, chiefly you drew them to your side and overcame me."
Overcame you? No offense, dude, but I don't think you're exactly as tough as you think you are. With my panels, so if you don't know, I have solar panels put on my roof, and they were turned on a couple weeks ago. Well, they were supposed to be. They failed the test. So, Wednesday next week, May 10th, they have a crew coming out here to fix a couple things. And then they're going to try to power them up again. And then we'll be running on solar. Gotta unmute it.
Whether Lucius truly said this is hard to say, and it is perhaps more likely an invention of Appian designed to capture an idea of what Lucius would have said. Either way, it is clear that Appian truly did consider him a man fighting for principles, not power. Fulvia's motivation is even more difficult to establish. As a powerful woman, she is often treated with a degree of hostility by Roman sources, and they attribute her little motivation aside from, quote, womanly jealousy. Though somewhat dismissive, the sources are also clear that she was a highly influential figure, and Dio even made the comment that she was so powerful that she was effectively a consul for 41 BC. Given Antony's highly publicized affair with Cleopatra, perhaps jealousy was a factor. However, it is also possible that Fulvia was simply an ambitious and powerful woman who used her position as wife of a powerful man to further her own interests, in this case, trying to oust Octavian. Powerful wives would soon become a recurring motif in Roman imperial history, and Fulvia was one of the first to truly exploit her position. Following the conclusion of the war, Antony's lieutenants dispersed. Agrippa was able to convince 2 legions to defect to Octavian, but the majority, along with Asinius, Plancus and Ventidius, merged with the Ahenobarbus, who was then convinced to side with Antony. Octavian himself began planning to take Gaul from Antony, but in a stroke of luck, Antony's governor of Gaul died, allowing Octavian to seize control of the province. Antony's family was also forced to flee Italy, Fulvia taking refuge in Athens, and Antony's mother going to Sextus in Sicily.
So why doesn't Antony return? Because apparently, I think what he was clearly hoping for was something would happen to Octavian. And it hasn't, and now his family's been kicked out. So it's just setting up the war that's going to happen between Octavian and Antony. Right? Am I wrong? Clearly, I'm right.
Antony, in the east, had seemingly been content to allow the situation in Italy to play itself out.
Oh.
It's unlikely that he agreed with his brother's sentiments. Antony was by no means a republican, and as a military man whose power was built on the army, it is improbable that he would have endorsed a position that threatened that relationship. Instead, he had spent much of 41 to 40 BC in Alexandria with Cleopatra, and preparing for a campaign against the Parthians, who had recently started making incursions into Syria. The loss of Gaul, his brother's defeat, and the flight of his family, however, made him look weak, and so he was forced to postpone the invasion and return to Italy. While he was en route, he was met by one of Sextus's advisors, Lucius Scriopnius Liber, who was escorting Antony's mother to safety. In return for this favour, Antony promised to ally with Sextus against their common enemy, Octavian, and to reconcile the two once the war was over. Both of these promises would prove to be short-lived. For now, however, Antony pushed on, landing around Brundisium sometime in mid-40 BC. The city was garrisoned by Octavian's men, and Antony was forced to besiege the city, simultaneously sending word to Sextus to attack wherever he could. Sextus acted swiftly, landing in Sardinia with 4 legions and seizing the island, and sending an invading force to Thurii. Agrippa was able to repel this force, but all-out war, once again, seemed to be being fought in the heart of the Republic. News suddenly reached Antony, though, that his wife, Fulvia, had died of an illness. This presented an opportunity. There were many in the camps of Octavian and Antony who did not want to fight, having been comrades just 2 years earlier at Philippi, and they implored both men to make peace. Neither man could risk losing the loyalty of their legions, and both were on rocky grounds. Octavian had fought Antony's own brother in Italy itself, while Antony had encouraged Sextus.
But he didn't kill him. Which, considering that he killed all the wealthy, he did not kill him. In fact, promoted him. So that, in a way, does help kind of keep the peace. And I keep calling him Antony. Antony, you can't use that against him. You can't say, hey, look, you fought my brother, and instead of murdering him, you promoted him? Oh, I ought to kill you. Like, you can't say that. He could have killed him. He didn't. I think, I just paused again, sorry. I think that might be one of the things that makes, even though Antony may really hate Octavian, Octavian did not give him any bullets to put into that gun. He didn't, has not a good analogy for previous non-gun times. He didn't give him a reason to go to war. I mean, he's going to find his reasons, I'm sure, but he didn't give him one. And when the chance came, he didn't.
To attack Italy. The hypocrisy of Antony, previously accusing Lepidus of conspiring with Sextus, while now doing it himself, was not lost on anyone. The situation was a mess, and both men were eager to save face. As such, Around September of 40 BC, the two made an agreement, the Treaty of Brundisium. The treaty reaffirmed the Second Triumvirate and redistributed territory, Octavian receiving all territories west of Scorda, as well as the right to fight Sextus if a peaceful solution could not be found, and Antony everything to the east, while Lepidus was given Africa. The treaty was cemented by the marriage of Antony to Octavian's sister Octavia. The two men returned to Rome in triumphal fashion to celebrate the marriage. As a sign of their renewed friendship, Antony also revealed to Octavian that he had letters showing that Salvidienus, one of Octavian's oldest friends and a highly talented general, had secretly been planning to desert Octavian. Betrayed, Octavian ordered Salvidienus to Rome, where he was promptly executed.
Were those real?
Agrippa
the documents, were they real, or was that forged?
would now indisputably be Octavian's right-hand man. The Perusine War ended with the Treaty of Brundisium. However, the endless cycle of war seemed to show no signs of stopping.
No.
While Antony had been diverted to Italy, the Parthian incursion, led in part by Quintus Labienus, had made massive progress, seizing many of the Republic's eastern provinces. We shall cover this Pompeian-Parthian invasion and the events surrounding it in the next episode, so make sure to subscribe.
It's just kind of kicking. Octavian and Antony just need to fight. Neither wants to fight each other. I think there is a respect there, but I mean, they're going to fight. What is the? How do people look at Antony now? I could ask my nephew that. My nephew's all about Rome. I could ask him, but maybe I don't want to know, because I don't like him. I didn't care for Octavian, but I think he's the lesser of the three. And not killing his brother, that has changed my mind. Well, I got to return a phone call, so I'm going to end this here. Like and subscribe. Have a good day. Have a good night.